This is NFA Talk, the show that talks about guns and gun rights, keeping you up to date with what's currently going on, from the newest guns, promotions, and events, plus how we're lobbying for your rights.
All right, we're back with another episode of NFA Talk, and I got to tell you, the other night's election, I am still trying to take it all in, and what happened to the firearms community, and what's going to be happening now because of this to the firearms community. I don't know if you guys want to weigh in, Sheldon or Rick, and
I think Jordan. I think everybody's a little confused and a little upset, and I think I'm the same as you. I just don't know. I haven't completely absorbed everything yet, but it's just we're definitely on a different road than we wanted to be, and I guess we'll just have to go from there. What do you think, Sheldon?
Well, I think that it's kind of a mixed result. Basically, I think Lisa Raitt nailed it when she said that it was $600 million spent on a cabinet shuffle. And this, in terms of this election, that was a complete waste of a lot of people's time. Except the bad thing is it gives Trudeau 4 more years to the next time he has to call an election, although he was hinting he was going to call one in 18 months. But in terms of our efforts on the election, I think we can hold our heads up pretty high. I mean, we targeted 34 ridings in this election. We managed to flip 50% of them. We flipped 17 out of 34 ridings that we were aiming at. And we managed to make sure that 6 of the Liberal targeted ridings we had were flipped. So we did okay with that. We put digital, billboard, radio ads in ridings all across Canada. We spent our money wisely. And 7.5 million views of our ads were made. So we got a lot of coverage. And then there's all the earned media we got. We had a lot of people seeing our stuff and commenting on it. In particular, I was very, very pleased with the efforts, Jordan, that you did, as well as the rest of the guys who were working on campaigns. And of course, our cartoonist, Nathaniel, for his tremendous effort in just punching out our critical cartoons on a regular basis that really made such a huge difference in how our message was seen, received, and reacted to by the Liberals. But I think the true thing here, guys, and you can tell me if I'm off base with this, everyone's going after Aaron O'Toole, and he's the leader because he's got to take responsibility for what happened. But I really think the back room of the Conservative Party needs a purge. I think there are a number of people there who, you can call them the short pants brigade or whatever you like, who've been giving advice to the party about shifting more and more to the left. And what we saw happen in this particular race was an awful lot of people who become disenfranchised from that approach, who all of a sudden said, no more. We're not accepting this. We're going to either stay home, which I know some of them did, or we're going to vote for one of the smaller fringe parties, which also happened. And so we saw a demographic shift from that big blue tent to go outside of that big blue tent. Maybe the big blue tent needs to focus on blue and a lot less on red.
I agree, Sheldon. I think we're talking about the split from the fringe parties, but I think we have to go to the root cause, and the root cause was the Conservatives. That's what caused the split to the fringe parties. And the fringe parties probably did cost us some seats. It's unfortunate, but people were mad, and I understand that, but I don't know. We're in a different situation right now.
Well, I think the thing you have to look at with the smaller parties, and the PPC gets floated out around a lot, the party of the petulant child. But the thing about that is it's not just conservative votes they attract. They attracted people who hadn't voted before. They attracted people on the left. So you can't just all say that all would have gone to the Conservatives. However, there were a lot of people who did vote that way who otherwise may have voted Conservative or perhaps stayed home. Yeah. And we think that you can look at the demographic shift of that, and you can say that probably 17, and some people say as high as 24 seats could have gone the other way and would have given the Conservatives a minority government, which they would have had to build a coalition with someone else to run. So there is a fair bit to look at in terms of what the Conservatives' mistakes were and why things went the way they did. But I think the other thing we have to look at is that some 60% of Canadians voted for socialism, right? They voted for the NDP, they voted for the Liberals, they voted for the Bloc, lefty, or the Greens. They voted for the left. And that is a very scary proposition. I mean, I hear people saying, well, the election was this, the election was that. Our elections are very good here. We have hand-filled out ballots. We check ID, all of that stuff. Even the mail-in ballots are very vigorously vetted and checked and all the rest of it. There's not a lot of room for hanky-panky in a Canadian election like there is in an American one. And that the scary thing that we have as people who believe in individual rights and freedoms and property rights is that a lot of people in this country don't.
I just want to chime in too. I'm very disappointed with the outcome, of course. But once again, the specter of a broken system rears its ugly head again, right? We have a prime minister that was elected, with less than 1/3, the first time in history, right, to become prime minister, first time. We haven't had a voter turnout like this since 1988. That's how low it is. So yep. We're seeing more and more people that are just checking out, right? And that's not because they don't care, right? They do care, but the problem is that the system doesn't embrace them, doesn't represent them. Why would they even bother, right?
Yep.
I mean, look at the fight that we've been doing for decades now, right? We're trying to get, our community represented by the government. We're a big community, a strong community, and nobody wants to take us seriously. And I'm talking about the Conservatives as well too. Let's just back up for a second, okay? Pre-campaign, okay? We talked to all the leaders. We had a hand in, bringing the narrative. They said all the right things. Aaron O'Toole said this and that and promised everything else under the sun. The campaign came on. Well, the fall time, he went dark, right? Now we did a big flip-flop. And what, how do we look at this now? Like, I mean, well, I've lost faith personally. I don't know what's going on.
Charlie, you can't lose faith. Like, you're an important guy in this fight because you're in contact with these guys and you talk to them. You and I both have run and put our names on ballots before. So I understand. And I see Phil Hukin, one of our people out there, also ran his own campaign, put his name on a ballot and ran. And my hat's off to you, Phil. And I salute all of those people who put their names on the ballot because they wanted to see fundamental change. That's an important thing to do. It's an important thing to do. However, we are in a situation in this country where the government of the day is not our friend. In fact, they are our enemy. And the opposition to that enemy basically threw us under the bus. Now, we stayed very steady throughout the entire race. We kept our plan together. We didn't compromise on our principles or what we said we were going to do to our members. We stuck to the plan. We ran a good campaign. We won seats. We kept Trudeau from getting a majority. That's what we did out there. And I'll tell you, he's got a pretty strong minority, at least so far the way all the counts have been going. But we can hold our heads high and say we stopped him from what he thought he was going to get back in August when it looked like he was going to get a majority government. And I think that's a pretty laudatory thing that we can all be proud of.
For sure. And we should, applaud ourselves for that. I mean, we put a lot of effort into it. God knows we put a lot of money into it and energy and everything else. I know everybody on this panel is exhausted, right? But what have we reelected? We've reelected a government, right, that takes the rule of law lightly, right? Has no problem skirting that when they want to. They're governing by polls, right? They don't govern by ethics or morality or do righteous things. They're only governing to be popular and to hold on to power. This is not a government. This is some kind of velvet despotism, right? That doesn't end well, right?
Charles, do you think calling an election during a pandemic was part of their plan? Low voter turnout, and you think that was part of the initial plan?
Of course it was. You know what I mean? They knew that there was going to be serious problems. Rolling out Elections Canada, infrastructure for this. They knew that. They told them it's going to take them days to basically count all the ballots. but they ramrodded this thing anyway because they knew that the low voter turnout doesn't make a difference in the grand scheme of things. Even if they're elected with 10 people, they get in, but they don't represent Canada, right? They represent themselves. Now, I'm just saying, as a Canadian who didn't vote for them and all those other people who didn't vote for them, do they represent you? I say no.
I see comments from time to time online, guys, and you probably have seen them too. People go on about rigged elections or this election or the vote was this or the vote was that. Well, I worked for Elections Canada for a few federal elections as a poll supervisor and a trainer for Elections Canada. And I just want to assure people out there that our elections are not like that hodgepodge mess we saw in the United States in the last one of their elections. Our elections are run by an independent body, which takes the secrecy of the ballot and the sanctity of the election very seriously. So ballots are accounted for. They're all serial numbered. They're treated like money. And if you're missing a ballot, it's a big deal. So I get a little bit annoyed when people say, oh, the election was rigged. No, the problem is that some 60% of the people in this country vote for commies. That's the problem. And, we've got to swing that around. Or we have to have a very strongly united remaining 35 to 40% of the rest of the folks who are not going to vote for parties on the left. Otherwise, we lose. That's the reality.
And we also have to get a lot more people to the ballots to vote.
So,
like we said, the turnout terrible, right? So, I mean, if you crunch the numbers, I don't think every firearms owner went out and voted this time around.
No. I think that when Aaron O'Toole flip-flopped, or appeared to flip-flop at least, on the firearms issue, I think that turned a lot of people off. I know there are some people who stayed home and chose not to vote at all. And I know of others who decided not to vote Conservative for that reason. I talked to a firearms owner yesterday who wasn't happy with either the Liberals or the Conservatives and chose a different option. And he changed his vote at the time of the flip-flop. So, I look at that campaign strategy that they chose there as extremely stupid. When you put a policy out and that's your marketing, you need to defend that policy, not cave because the CBC asks you a tough question.
Right.
Exactly.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on where this is going to go now? I mean, we do have the court challenge.
Yep.
The court challenges, that are coming up, and I mean, that I guess that's it, because we're all criminals if we still own these assault style weapons by May 1st of 2022. So where are we going with this? What are your thoughts, guys?
Well, there's a couple of things we have to think about. First of all, the campaigning for the next election starts like this week. It started yesterday. It started right after the last election finished. So we've got to get working on that now. We can't be complacent or sit on our hands. Secondly, we have to make sure our court challenge is as well prepared as it can be to win. It's not a marketing exercise. It's not a self-promotion thing. It's a carefully, strategically designed exercise in getting the best arguments forward to win our case. Now, there's some look at doing another intervention, but I mean, the time to have done an intervention on this is now, when we have a compelling reason, which didn't exist before. And I know there's some talk about doing an intervention, and I hope it works, but it's been ruled on already, and I think it's going to be a pretty tough sell. So we've got to work on that. That's the big thing. The court challenge is important, but we also have to work on the next election.
Are we talking intervention or injunction?
Injunction.
It would be an injunction to delay the
right.
To delay the effect of the deadline of bringing in.
Because it's out in the news. I guess the courts have laid it out, and they won't be hearing the court case until after the effective date, right? So
yeah, that's the timelines.
Yeah.
I got to say one thing, that the question of what's next. Well, we know what's next. We know Trudeau is he's going to double down on this again, right? I mean, he already said, despite his stalemate or loss, or where we want to see this, he said that he now has a clear mandate, right? And if you look at, he actually said that, right? He has a clear mandate with the less votes and being, ushered in as prime minister with the lowest votes in history.
Well, I think that they're critical of Aaron O'Toole, but I think the guy who really needs to wear a loss on this election is Justin Trudeau, because
sure. Yep.
he didn't get his majority. This
Again.
election was held so he could be the bully boy in Parliament and just do whatever he wanted with his Senate seats that he managed to pick, with his strong numbers in Commons, and he didn't get that. He still has to make compromises. He still has to go to committees. He still has to justify everything he does, and he hates that because he's
well, that's why he called a majority. But I just want to say that, we know Trudeau now. He will proceed forward with shenanigans and any way that he can. Right? Yes, he'll have to work. He'll be pressured to go through committees and things like that. But make no mistake, there's rumors out there that he's going to, play Mr. Nice for the next little bit. That's delusional, right? This guy is on a tear, right? He's an ideological tyrant, and we're basically at his mercy now. We really are, right? We're hoping that the Conservatives would stand up and defend us and get rid of the OIC and the rest of the things that were coming our way and give us some relief. They failed to do that for their own reasons, and like you said, Sheldon, we gave them lots of berth and lots of leeway to run their own campaign without any interference from us organically or through our third party. And they once again failed to bring it home. So Aaron's going to have to, atone for that himself. He wears this. He can't blame us. He can't blame anybody else. It's him, right? So he's got some explaining to do.
And I know people are out there are very anxious. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff coming up in C21. I would encourage everyone to get their shopping done now and early, so they have everything they won't be able to own when that comes into effect. Support your local gun store. Support your stores out there that work hard to bring products to the community. And I'll tell you, there's an awful lot of talk about not complying with this that I've been hearing from people. People are getting organized. People are saying they're not going to go through with this. They're done. They've seen enough of it. And I think if the Trudeau Liberals think the kind of heavy-handed government we're seeing in other places in the world is going to fly here, I think they're going to run into a very, very big surprise.
Right.
Totally.
So what's the thoughts on how long? I mean, I don't think it's going to be called C21 anymore, because I believe they have to reintroduce the bill, so it's probably going to have a different number to it.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you guys think? A month, 2 months, 3 months? What do you think it's going to take them to reintroduce this?
I think it's going to be in the winter time again. That's when they typically bring this back up, right? Yeah. So they'll realign themselves. They'll go back to the anti-groups that they swear they're not beholden to, and yet they are. And they'll rejig it according to what they want, and they will put it forward probably even stricter than what it was before. So,
we're already starting to hear rumors that they're long gun magazines that are going to be capped to 5 rounds.
Yep.
So, and then there's going to be a lot like lever actions where you feed them through the tube. I don't know how they're going to permanently modify those to be able to only hold 5 rounds. There's a lot of rumors going out there. Semi-automatics are in serious trouble, and then of course we have the municipality handgun ban that could potentially be put in place.
That's a big one, Jordan. The municipality handgun ban. They're basically bribing the municipalities to ban handguns, is what the deal there is.
Well, that's just going to raise another constitutional challenge. I mean, they can't do that. The municipalities can't institute themselves without the permission of the provinces. And of course, we see some provinces that are already caving to liberal bribery. We've got them out there with daycare. So what's another couple $1 billion? They can always waste more money in the provincial, treasury side, and they're perfectly willing to take everybody's money to do that. So, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. The problem is that once again, they are not respecting Canadian constitutional rights and freedoms. We as a minority, even if we're a small minority, the government's job is to protect the minority from the mob, and they're not doing it.
No, they're tyrants of the majority, is what we're seeing, and they don't even have a majority. We have a government here where the prime minister claims he has a mandate. He doesn't have a mandate for anything. In fact, he proved that if anything, this election shows he doesn't have any mandate to do anything except to sort of be a caretaker government until they can get a real leader with a real party in there that can formulate real legislation and do some real work. Instead, we have a playboy who likes to dress up, show off to the rest of the world, and embarrass himself and his country on the world stage. And I can't fathom why people vote for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we have two other parties that could change the outcome of bills, and they both are anti-gun. So we're in a real predicament here.
Yep. You know, I've been chiming in on some of these, I guess these postmortems that are popping up now, and they'll come fast and furious in the next little bit. And it's disturbing what I'm hearing from, you know, the politicals out there that are analyzing this. They're saying that, you know, issues don't matter, you know, and ethics don't matter, morals don't matter. You know, they're saying about Aaron Toole, what really mattered with him was his cool running shoes. And I'm going, man, if we're at that state now where, you know, we're voting because of somebody's fashion, you know, Canada has fallen.
Well, if we were voting because of people's fashion, Trudeau the Elder wouldn't have won because of his predilection to wear Nazi regalia and ride around on a motorcycle when he was a young guy.
Yeah.
And I mean,
well, we're going to get in trouble for that again.
Yeah. But I want to go back to point out what we did in this election that mattered. I mean, we had our people on the ground in constituency associations, putting up signs, taking them down, doing the cleanup, getting the heavy lifting done. We were engaged in our own campaign months ago, getting ready to put something out, launch it. And we did all of that. We did everything right. I mean, we won 17 of our target ridings that were very marginally close. And we flipped 6 away from the Liberals. That's pretty cool. The problem is we got let down by others who didn't carry their weight in their own election campaign. That's what happened.
True.
But I just want to say thank you to all of those out there who got out and worked for a political party to defeat the Liberals, regardless of which one it was. But you got out there and you worked hard. You put your sweat into it. You put your energy, your passion. I salute you. Thank you for doing that. And
yes,
I know you're ahead of a lot of Canadians who didn't engage in this election at all and just let other people do it. And I'll tell you, as everybody knows, the world is run by those who show up. Well, we showed up and you showed up, and thank you for that.
True.
Right.
You know, just in terms of our own organics as well, too. I know that, you know, our social media was, like you were saying, with the cartoons resonating greatly. I was keeping a pretty good track of Bill Blair and, you know, the infamous Pam Damoff and Mark Gerritsen and all the other wacky commies out there. And you could tell they were rattled by a lot of our stuff, which is great, you know, but unfortunately, Pam's still there. Blair's still there. You know, yeah. Chris Biddle's still there. Mark Gerritsen's still there. So look for, you know, Circus Part 2 to come.
Well, they made a point. They made a point of coming directly at us, so that shows that they're hearing our message.
Yep.
Jordan, you
forgot? No, Charles, you forgot about our good friend Vance Badaway.
Vance Badaway too, another one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, very cozy with us when it came time back many years ago, coming out to the charity shoot, shooting a gun. Great conversation with him. He was a gunny, and now all of a sudden he's totally against it and towing the Trudeau line, right? So that was an interesting story.
And I gotta say, there are an awful lot of candidates who ran for the Conservatives who are still our friends and who supported us 100% right through, and were just as shocked as we were over the flip-flop stuff, right? And I mean, you have to play steady. You can't be faltering and giving your, you know, there's an old saying, I think it's biblical, Charles, maybe you can correct me on this. If the trumpet shall make an uncertain sound, who shall prepare for battle? And
very good.
And if the trumpet is making an uncertain sound, is it a charge? Is it a retreat? Is it a forum square? What is it? You need to know. And I mean, we can blow our trumpet. We had our direction. We followed it. We kept our head clear, but we saw others around us falter. And that is a lack of leadership. And for that, I think that the Conservatives really need to have a look at their leadership. They need to look at their back room. And I think there needs to be a purge, especially in that back room, which for years has been saying, throw the SOCONs, throw the individual rights and freedom people under the bus. they're a stinking albatross around the neck of the movement. I've heard all of that stuff, and it's time for that nonsense to go.
You know what? And that's exactly it with the Conservatives. They're, the leaders are still surrounded by, Harper era, Scheer era, short pants that are red Tories, right? They don't carry the true blue standard, and they're pushing their own agenda, which means stricter gun control. I'm sorry, that's what it is. I see it in my own EDA now. Where people, they openly talk about civil disarmament and less guns and guaranteed income and all this other non-conservative type of theology. So
Yep.
It's been corrupted. I don't know how we fix that, but a strong leader has to stick to the values and principles. And we've seen this historically. The Conservatives only win when they stand on their conservative values and principles, not waffling around trying to be something that they're not. And
Yep.
they did it again. They did it again.
You're absolutely right, Charles. You're absolutely right. We've seen this pattern before. It's the kind of thing that really doesn't work and it doesn't sell. And I'm shocked that for the last 70 years, a conservative movement in Canada has really just been pushing further and further to the left. It really started in the 1950s when they started building the welfare state, and that became pretty much nailed home in the late 60s. And they've just been sucking it up ever since. And I'm sorry, we have to pay for this at some point. And we're paying for it now with our rights, our freedoms, our property. And I don't see Canadians supporting this. I'm hearing a lot of angry people.
That's why the Liberals do so well. They're not infighting and splitting their people within like the Conservatives are, and the people that Conservatives are splitting within are going to these fringe parties. Bottom line, guys.
I got to disagree with you there, Rick.
Yeah.
The Liberals most definitely have problems with infighting. I mean, you can look at recent examples. Jody Wilson-Raybaugh's new book. Make no mistake, she's not a hero or anything. She's a liberal, a hardcore liberal. She just didn't like the cut of Trudeau's jib and the way he tried to bully her. And there's a few other strong people who were in that cabinet who thought that they were there because of their merits and found out they were there because they filled some sort of woke agenda. And that didn't sit well with them because the Liberals don't have any principles. You see, they adjust their policies to fit the needs of the day. That's what they do. They always do that. And
I'll retract that statement, but I'll say they do a better job of putting the lid on things when the lid needs to be put on things. They're better at that, I think.
Well, I don't know about that. It didn't work for them.
You know what they're really good at, though, is they are king at the wedge issue, right? So they know they're masters at that, and they try to bring it up in every election. They tried very hard to make that very much a wedge issue this time with guns, right? The abortion thing didn't come. They tried their things that, none of it really got traction, but now they're saying, of course it was, we made it into a wedge issue and it was an election plank that everybody voted for. And now we have a clear mandate. Lies, all lies.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't succeed in the making of the wedge issue they thought they would. Otherwise, they'd have a majority government. They don't have a majority government. They didn't succeed. They've got to deal with the committees. The committee process is going to delay a lot of this stuff and change it. They have to deal with making some opposition parties happy in a coalition government, or not a coalition, but to prop up their minority. Yep. They're gonna, they don't have it, and they're gnashing their teeth. They're rending their garments. They're tearing their hair.
But they sure spend a lot of money coming after us.
Well, they really hate us. They especially hate you, Rick.
Yeah, I know.
And they also hate Jordan. They hate me.
I'm trying to fly under the radar, but you guys aren't making it easy for me, right?
No. And Charlie, I know that although you and Pam have a great personal relationship outside of politics.
But you know what, Sheldon? The fact that they hate me or they hate you, the fact is, then we're getting noticed. If they didn't notice us, they wouldn't hate us. So I think that's a good thing.
Well, I'm
doing
proud.
our job.
This is a badge of honor to be hated by these scumbags. It's a badge of honor. I'm so sick of their woke left-wing gun grabbing, anti-individual rights crap. And I'm not going away. None of us are going away, and we shouldn't be hanging our heads down and going, "Woe is me," either.
No.
The fight's just getting going.
You know what? We've got our backs against the wall right now. We're going to come out swinging.
Well, you know what? And we've been doing that, right? And that's why they do hate us, because they don't hate us because we're, some kind of, rebels without a cause. We're actually throwing truth at them that resonates with not only them personally, but the people that support them. I mean, I remember, I was bringing up this whole thing about, one sexual harassment charge after another in the Trudeau cabinet. Trudeau himself is implicated. So, my own MP, is the self-professed, feminist and, guardian of women's rights. She has never got up and publicly renounced any of this in her party. Hasn't rebuked Trudeau, hasn't rebuked Rainey, hasn't rebuked the last guy that just bowed out. All these guys, allegations or not, Marwan, for instance, I mean, he's basically in court under criminal charges, not a word. They say they're this, but they're not. They're fakes. They're all fakes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of opportunists in politics, and I mean, people go on and on about Mad Max and how he's such a populist. Well, I'm sorry, Mad Max didn't show up for the firearms votes. Mad Max refused to meet with us and talk to us. He was invited to come on our program and discuss politics with us, and he flat out refused. He refused to take any advice or suggestions from us on firearms policy. And quite frankly, he's not a friend of the firearms community, despite the sort of watery firearms policy that he has in his PPC platform.
It's easy.
Never said anything about guns until after the PPC came out.
It's easy to make a lot of promises when you're not going to be held accountable because you're not going to win. It's very easy.
Exactly.
Well, even still, I mean, like at best case scenario, he would have got a minority government if it took off. What is he going to do when the other opposition parties are not going to support his bills and he doesn't have a majority? He can't ram it through. No. So it was, unless he got a majority, nothing was going to happen anyways.
Well, one of our previous lobbyists said something fairly wise about this, and he said, the Conservatives, they're not our friends, but they're not our enemies. And everybody else is actually really our enemy. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. And then when you have others who tout policies that they know they'll never have to implement, well, then, this is a means of putting a wedge between the united capability of our larger voice. But we have our work cut out for us. Charles, you have your work cut out for you in going and lobbying and meeting with these people and sorting them out. Because, like I said, there needs to be a purge in the Conservative Party to fix the nonsense that we've seen in this election and a bit before, because they keep throwing us under the bus, and that's got to stop. And if they're going to throw us under the bus, they're going to find gun owners stay home. And when Kim Campbell pulled that crap, we know what happened to her.
I was just reading some of the comments here in the Domo bomb. Going forward, I seriously doubt the CPC will be gun friendly. Maybe it's time to support the PPC. You know what? That's why we got Charles in Ottawa, to talk to these people and to sway them. That's why we're here for.
Well, people keep talking about PPC. Well, there's a joke going around online, which I think is fairly apt, and it's quite true. What's the difference between a toilet and the PPC? Well, the toilet has a seat, and the PPC doesn't have a seat. It was never going to get a seat, and it was a fantasy to talk of a purple wave. It just wasn't going to happen, and it's not going to happen next time either.
Bernier came in third in his own riding.
Well, exactly, and he was second the last time.
Yeah.
So he actually dropped in that aspect. And I think he really ran a con job on a lot of people, and it has to do with being a petulant child, because he lost the leadership to Andrew Scheer in 2017.
He's mad. He's still mad.
Yep. He's still mad about it. That's what this is really.
Mad Max, right?
Yeah.
So I know Trudeau made a couple statements and it's been out in the public, and he says basically if he did not get a majority, we're going to be right back here again in another 18 months.
Let's get ready for the next election.
We got to get rocking and rolling, and that's where the support of our members is really what we need. The donations. Make sure you renew your memberships. Find a friend. We've got a lot of promotions coming out, and it helps fund campaigns like we just did with this elections. We were out there, we had signage, we had radio ads, social media, the cartoons. I think I'm really happy with what we did. Unfortunately the results weren't what we wanted, but I'm really happy. All of us, we should pat our own backs, and that's including our members too that helped. Our field officers helping out in different regions, putting up signs. It was a great campaign. We did what we had to do, and it was the CPC's to lose. And
I agree with you, Jordan. I totally agree with you. I think that's exactly right. We did do a good campaign. Our people stepped up. They worked hard. They made a difference. We kept these guys. Let's say we helped keep these guys from getting the majority. It isn't the flip around and getting them away from a minority, but we did stop a majority. And I think for that, we can be very proud.
Our people worked hard, especially Jordan. Jordan probably the last 2 weeks of the election was running 20, 21, 22 hours a day without any sleep. But you know what? Our people, we pulled together. We had a plan. We stuck to it. And here we are, unfortunately.
The other side of this,
I watched the election. And as soon as they said minority liberal, I went to bed for about 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say too that, what this actually did, this exercise that we pulled off here, I don't think our organization has ever been so professional. And now we've raised the level of talent and skill and experience within our own group now. So when the next one comes, we're going to be coming up to bat with even more confidence, with greater resolve and greater skill sets, because we've gone through this together all as a team. And we're ready now. They could call an election next week, and I think we could probably pull this off.
Well, I think we've got a very good team in place that's going to be showing a great deal of moxie and fervor in the next aspect of this fight. But I think Jordan actually has got it right. The next election could be within 18 months. And I mean, what happens if he can't put together his little coalition with the NDP, which we all know that's what he's going to do? Despite their little barbs with each other on the debate, which is all for show, they're all fellow travelers. They all vote the same on those issues, and so that's what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, the backdoor deals are already starting to be made, right?
Sure.
So Trudeau will give the NDPs something. He'll give the Bloc something. What did the Green? Yeah, they got 2 seats. 2 seats, 1 seat. I know their leader didn't even get her own seat in Toronto. So, that party's in shambles. So he'll make it. He'll try to form with the Bloc and the NDP and see where they can go with that, right?
Well, if you look at the numbers, though, guys, too, the other thing you need to point out is, well, if the Conservatives want to be government, they can make a deal with the NDP, the Bloc, and everybody else and form government there. But you'd have to sell your soul on any legislation you passed. Right?
Exactly.
So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there will be no coalition. I know the Bloc has already outright and said there will be no coalition. No. I haven't heard anything from the NDP. They're ambulance chasers. They're in it for whatever they can get, and they'll go to bed with anybody who gives them, what they want. So shameless, but very effective.
I was looking at Phil Hukin's comment there, and I know Phil, and he's a great guy, and he talks about a pro-gun party. Well, now, single issue parties just are not going to succeed. They just cannot succeed. You have to have a party that has comprehensive positions on all issues that matter to everyone, or you're just not going nowhere. And I mean, that's a great thought. A better approach is to get involved with an established party, get in there, make a difference at the riding level, work to purge the upper echelons who think they know what's best for all of us down at the grassroots. And then you'll start to see some real change.
I just want to say in closing here that this may correct itself. The Liberals typically, I don't know if you guys remember Pierre Elliott Trudeau and his legacy. In the end, he basically burned the economy, put us into major debt. There was 21% interest rates, out there, and people were just dying on the vine. And people eventually lost their comfort level and, of course, their faith in the Liberal government to govern. And the Conservatives came back and they fixed things back up. So we may be headed for something like that sooner than later. The financial indicators don't bode well. So we might have a change of government, but then we'll have bigger problems to fry.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, that's it,
right.
Charles. Is what we've got happening is Trudeau may have won this election, but lost a bigger set of credibility because we're headed for an economic crisis, maybe even an economic collapse because of the massive nature of our debt and our deficit. And you can't just print money to get rid of this problem. That approach has failed every time it's ever been tried in the 1920s and 30s and so on. And more recently, even when some countries have thought they could just print money. Well, Trudeau is going to wear it when the economy really crashes, and all the signs are there. So we're going to be looking at the guy who will probably regret having won this election. So it has as much as this renewed minority is a win.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. That was our final thoughts. We've all kind of put something in there. One last thing to everybody watching and to our membership: take the time and write your MP a letter, your Conservative MP, and tell them your values and what you want to look for going forward, because they're going to bring this to the EDAs and they're going to bring this to the party and they're going to talk about it, and they need to know. So, get out there and let them know that, hey, this is something that's bothering us. They need to know this.
Very good. Well, thanks very much, everybody. And thanks to all of you who got out there and actually voted. And that's one of the most important things you can do as a citizen, to exercise your franchise. Thank you.
All right, guys, until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NFA Talk. Like and follow the NFA on social media and sign up to become a member.